What I Am. Written by Night Breeze. Read by No One and Nobody.
Chapter 31.
70% of the ship is inoperable. It's a wonder that she's moving under her own power at all,
Talion reported. Yvtil grunted her acknowledgement, but did not otherwise show that she had even heard the lieutenant. She was too busy, her fingers dancing across the panel in front of her as she reviewed information, ordered a boarding party, and generally did her level best to figure out what had happened. Deep down, though, she had a feeling that she already knew what had happened.
Any word from the Purpose?
Yvtil asked, not even bothering to look up.
They say they finished their own scans. There's plenty of biomass still on board, just no life,
Lieutenant Talion reported.
Which falls in line with the minimal heat readings we're picking up,
Yvtil said, before collapsing into her chair.
Sergeant Cassianon, do you have a team ready yet?
There was a pause, presumably as the sergeant struggled with his newly expanded duties.
Almost ready, ma'am. The armory is still a bit of a mess.
Please hurry. The sooner we find out what happened, the sooner we can send a message back to High Command. Ma'am, I don't think that's necessary. The Purpose is already boarding as we speak, and I will not be letting a Cusan crew head the investigation of one of our ships alone,
Commander Yvtil interrupted, while shooting her lieutenant a dirty look.
Now, if you have nothing else to add, return to your post and inform me if the captain calls. Yes, ma'am,
Talion said, suitably chastised. It took several more minutes for the boarding party to be ready, and in that time they had already received several reports from the Cusan team. Yvtil would not be dissuaded, however, and sent the troops over the second they reported that they were prepared. Yvtil was so preoccupied with her work then that she nearly jumped out of her carapace when Lieutenant Talion's console started beeping, signifying that they were receiving a communication.
Ma'am, it's Captain Azalk.
Put him through, Yvtil said, before straightening ever so slightly. She knew that the captain wouldn't be able to see her, but she still felt nervous about reporting this latest catastrophe.
Yvtil, we're on board the shuttle and headed back. ETA is about half an hour,
Hazalk said, his voice sounding grim.
That doesn't sound good,
Yvtil thought to herself.
Did something disastrous happen with the natives, sir?
No. In fact, we've had a huge breakthrough. They've offered an alliance, and we're no longer being treated as monsters.
While the news was both surprising and welcome, Yvtil couldn't help but note the distinct lack of excitement in the captain's voice.
I take it that's not all there is to it?
No. Found out a few things. But the most troubling one is that it's apparently a Void Knight's power to be able to tell the future.
There was a slight pause as everyone on the bridge froze.
Excuse me, sir?
Yvtil asked, not quite believing what she had heard.
You heard me, Yvtil. It's probably why the Cusan were expecting the offensive of Galathor Prime. But that's not as important as the fact that the priestess had a vision. We're apparently expecting company, and soon, so we'll need to be prepared before the rebels show up.
Captain Hazalk deadpanned.
Hopefully, the Aurora will get here before they do, but it's entirely possible that she'll be too late.
Yvtil felt like her heart was currently trying to work its way out of her chest cavity.
Sir, about that.
What?
Sir, about half of the Aurora arrived a few moments ago,
Commander Yvtil said, her one remaining antenna falling flat against the back of her head in dismay.
We have people investigating as we speak, but from the look of her, she was probably ambushed right before they entered hyperspace.
There was a pause at this, and Yvtil could feel Captain Hazalk's anger over this news.
Were there any survivors?
Hazalk said, his voice deadly calm.
As far as we know, no. There may be a soul or two stuffed into a stasis pod in medical, but from the initial look of the thing, all hands were either killed in space or starved during the trip through hyperspace.
Well, sure,
Captain Hazalk swore.
Well, that pretty much confirms Akatish's vision, then.
Sir, what are we going to do?
Yvtil asked, as she slumped dejectedly into her seat.
They'll be bringing a whole fleet to bear, and we won't be able to call in reinforcements in time.
It does seem pretty hopeless, but we're not quite done yet,
Hazalk said, his voice firm and unyielding.
We're still alive, and don't forget, We have allies able to control the sun. I don't think our ship will be able to take a whole fleet, but I do think that our allies will be able to make up for the difference.
Are you certain about that, sir? You know that a single Cusan ship can't take 3 of our best, much less an entire fleet.
I wasn't talking about the Cusan,
Hazalk said, his voice still remarkably calm.
The natives, sir? They might be able to control the sun, but if the fleet gets past its effective range, they'll risk cooking themselves to use it.
Yvtil said as she rubbed the smooth chitin above her eyes.
We might not know how that particular power works, but from everything we know, that's a stopgap measure at best.
And it is. We're not fighting to repel the invaders, we're fighting to stall them. Don't worry, the sun is just one of the tricks these people have up their sleeves. Don't count them out just yet.
Yvtil swallowed hard before taking in a deep breath to calm her nerves.
Very well, sir, but I hope for all of our sakes they've got something miraculous up their sleeves. You look absolutely fabulous, darling.
Thank you, but I really don't think...
We must put our best to afford. I will not be returning you to your new allies looking like a beggar.
I appreciate the thought, but...
Ooh! It's your face, isn't it? You're afraid they'll be scared just looking at your horrifying, disgusting visage. Pinky, you shouldn't.
No, she's pretty much spot on, I said, bursting the white pony's indignant anger on my behalf. I mean, honestly, look at me. Points for the revolutionary look, but that doesn't stop the fact that I'm a freaking monster. Suit or not, I'm gonna cause somebody to scream.
You look fine, darling.
You might think that, but...
Oh, what if you wear this?
The pink one said, before slapping something onto my face. I reached up with my still-working arm and pulled it off, before looking down at it, somewhat bemused. A mask?
Yatha Lina Lassa!
The pink one said, using a word that wasn't in my lexicon. Based on her tone, though, it was probably some kind of agreement.
Darling, you shouldn't have to hide who you are. You are so much more than a monster.
Rarity said, taking the mask from me with her magic. Before it could get too far away from me, though, I snatched it back and cradled it to my chest. It might be worse, but I think I want to keep it. Thank you, Pinky. I then put it back on, then secured it awkwardly with my uninjured hand by the attached string. As I did this, the pink one could not keep still even slightly, and almost continually bounced around me until the mask was in place.
You're welcome! Are we ready to go then? I can't wait to meet all those new friends waiting out there.
I know you're excited, but it'll just be me at first, I said as I held out a calming hand. We don't know where the mirror comes out, or even what will be waiting on the other side. For all we know, there could be a couple of cops on the other side, and I don't really want to find out how they'll react to alien ponies stepping out of an interplanetary gate. Rainbow, who had been lazily lounging on my otherwise empty hospital bed, perked up at the unfamiliar word.
What's a cap?
I don't know your word for it, but it's someone who holds up law, protects, keeps people safe. I tried a couple of times.
A Mal?
Rainbow asked, as she gestured towards one of the nearby soldiers. I thought those were soldiers, I said, using the word I had been given earlier for the armored ponies.
They are, but Mal is our word for someone who protects something or someone.
Rarity quickly explained. A guard, then, I thought, as I shook my head, ignoring the grin text informing me that the new word had been added to my lexicon. No, while a cop does do that, that's not their job. Their job is primarily to keep the peace and to uphold the law.
So, a soldier then?
Rainbow asked. This caused me to shake my head again. No, a soldier's expected to fight wars. A cop's only expected to enforce laws on the people. This seemed to confuse all the assembled ponies.
You have separate people for that?
Rainbow asked. I shrugged a little, scratched my head, then nodded. Well, yeah. Our people are kind of fragmented, so we find it more useful to have those jobs separate. It's actually illegal in my country to use soldiers on normal people.
And who stops the bad guy? Oh, it's the cops, isn't it?
Pinky asked, her mouth running slightly faster than her brain, apparently. Yes, and if there are cops on the other side, it's entirely possible that they'll shoot before asking questions, when several aliens step out of a seemingly random mirror. We need to be careful about this, and I'm by far the best choice to send. I know the language, and I can hopefully dodge bullets if needed. Rarity did not like the sound of that, apparently.
You do not sound confident about your abilities, darling.
That's because I'm not. I've dodged plasma fire, but I have no idea if that's faster or slower than bullets. My gut and the conventional wisdom I've learned says the bullets would be faster, but until I actually see them, I have no way of telling.
This seemed to worry the three ponies in front of me, but none nearly as much as Rarity. Though not for the reason I first thought.
You must promise me not to ruin your suit, then, darling. It is one of a kind, and should you ruin it before your people see it, it shall be an absolute travesty. Yeah, Rarity, that's really what he should be worried about,
Rainbow muttered, laying the sarcasm on so thick that I could cut it with my claws.
It'll be fine, I promise. Now, how do I look?
The three ponies gave me a careful look, or rather, Rarity gave me a careful look, while Rainbow looked bored, and the pink one looked like she could hardly contain herself. Finally, the white fussy dressmaker gave me a slow, approving nod.
I believe that just about does it. Wish we could do away with the sling, but there's no helping it.
Yeah, me too. Nothing I can do about it, though. So let's go.
Narrative law would have dictated that the trip to where the mirror was being kept was quick and quiet, but that was actually the opposite of the walk through the halls. It felt like it took forever to reach our destination, and Rainbow and Pinky's constant speculation on how my world, and my people, would look meant that I couldn't even try to think of other things to keep my mind off of what was about to happen. It honestly made me dread what was about to come, and each step seemed to announce my impending doom to any that might be listening. Minutes seemed to stretch on for hours as I subconsciously activated my implants, trying desperately to stretch this moment into eternity, to keep me from having to face those that I had left behind. As much as I would have liked to say that I managed to stop time, though, I was unsuccessful in that endeavor, and far earlier than I would have liked it to be, I found myself on the opposite side of a rather unassuming, yet at the same time ominous, door. A quick handle turn was all that was needed to reveal the other side, and I found myself somewhat shocked by just how few people were there. Twilight was there, looking over a mirror that was identical to the one that Titania had shown me, as was the Changeling Queen herself. The three princesses were also there, as was that one white soldier pony that I'd never gotten the name of, but other than that, that was it. No other soldiers, no other scientists, just this small group, eagerly awaiting a connection to a world of potential allies. And it was all up to me not to royally screw this up. As soon as the door opened, everyone present turned to look at me, a variety of expressions on their faces. Mostly I saw a mixture of worry and anticipation, but one face seemed to be filled with nothing but pure joy as she bounded towards me.
Alex, I'm so glad you're finally here. I've been looking over this portal, and your speculations are spot on. It's drawing power from the other side, not here. What's more is that it's still drawing power. I don't know how your ancestors managed it, but for a spell form to remain this perfect, after all this time, is just...
Twilight, calm yourself,
Celestia gently reprimanded the excited bundle of magic and science.
There will be plenty of time for speculation later. At the moment, however, we have work to do.
Right, sorry.
Twilight said sheepishly, before backing up somewhat.
It's just that it's so exciting! A new world, completely free of magic, right on the other side of this mirror! How this works could easily fill 20 volumes, and unlock so many fields of study! And that's not even touching what the humans could teach us!
It's humans, actually,
I corrected her, before looking towards the mirror.
Is it ready then? Can we power it from this side?
Well, yes. The spell form powering this artifact is actually pretty simple, and can easily be augmented to accept power from this side. We can establish contact at any time,
Twilight said, before rushing over to the mirror.
All that remains is you, then,
Princess Luna said, before fixing me with a knowing stare.
Are you ready? No, but I don't think waiting is going to be doing us any favors. We're out of time as it is,
I said, as I squared my shoulders.
After you, then,
Luna said, before gesturing towards the mirror.
Hold up. Before we do this, there's something you need to do first,
I said, as a thought suddenly occurred to me.
It may be entirely possible that my reception will be unpleasant. Could we... I don't really know the word for it, but could you put up some kind of barrier on this side?
This immediately caught the attention of the soldier pony. Why would you need that? You're not suggesting they'd attack us, are you?
No, but they might attack me,
I said, before taking up a stance with myself between the soldier and the mirror.
Now, it's a pretty small chance, but if you, say, fired something at me, and it missed, where would it go?
The soldier immediately caught on to what I was getting at, and gave me a pretty serious look.
I know your people have some powerful weapons, but what kind of fire are we expecting from there? Something like a crossbow?
Smaller,
I said. He seemed relieved, up until the point where I completely shattered his little bubble of security.
Guns fire these tiny pellets at incredible speeds. I don't know how sturdy your magic makes your armor, but with non-enchanted armor, even the smallest firearm could punch through plate like yours without too much difficulty.
I might have been exaggerating a little, but not by much. Besides, I really needed to impress onto these people how dangerous our weapons could be. The soldier, as well as just about every pony present, were both aghast and confused at the destructive power I was describing.
But how? An object of that size couldn't possibly have mass to do what you're describing,
Twilight said, clearly disturbed.
It doesn't need the mass when it's moving faster than the speed of sound,
I said, causing their eyes to widen in fear and understanding.
I know it's pretty scary to think about, but trust me when I say we need that kind of killing power. And more. Especially when we consider what we're fighting.
You are, of course, right. But I must wonder, what will your people do once both our worlds are safe?
Princess Celestia asked, her voice calm as a summer's morning.
You said yourself that your history is nothing more than one nation conquering another. Can you promise me that your people will not turn on us once this is finished? That we will not become your slaves once this is over?
I shook my head sadly.
I'm afraid I can only speak for myself. However, there are a few things I can promise, depending on which nation the mirror is in right now. If it is in my nation, and I have a pretty good hunch it is, I can confidently guarantee your safety.
Why is that?
Princess Luna asked curiously.
Because in my country, it is illegal to keep slaves. America has been one of, if not the most powerful nation in the world for some time. I'd be lying if I said we'd never abused that power, but more often than not, we've been afraid of the power we possess. After all, we've stayed the same size for the past 100 years or so.
The assembled ponies looked even more worried at that, with the sole exception of the pink one.
It's okay. I'm sure everything will turn out all right. How can you be so certain, Pinky? For all we know, we're trading one enemy for another.
Rainbow yelled, clearly not happy with how the conversation was going.
Because I trust him,
Pinky said, pointing up at me.
Plus, if we don't get help soon, the real bad guys are gonna come get us. She's right,
Princess Luna said with a nod.
We may very well be opening the door to our own destruction, but it is a possible destruction. The one coming from the stars is, by far, more certain, and far more imminent.
There was a smattering of agreement after that, and I felt a lump form in my throat when all three princesses turned towards me.
Alex, we are ready. If you would, please go and establish contact with your people. Our fate is in your hands,
Celestia said, before bowing her head ever so slightly towards me. I nodded at that, not really trusting myself to say anything to her. Instead, I concentrated on the task at hand, as well as the suddenly ominous mirror directly in front of me.
Okay, open the mirror and put up the shield then. Let's see where we'll end up, and how everyone is going to react to this.
Jeffrey Stevens yawned as he kept his post. The museum was practically dead, the only patrons at this time being a mother and a rowdy boy. At the moment, the small family was looking through the medieval Europe section, and looked like they were going to be moving on soon. The museum had been quite dead for the past several days, in fact. The appearance of aliens tended to have that effect on places like this, despite the wide range of responses from the general public. Many people were raiding shopping centers, stocking up on food, weapons, and essentials as much as possible. Others were busy protesting, while still others were out partying, either celebrating the fact that humanity wasn't alone in the universe, or having one last bonanza before the death rays started raining from the skies. Everyone else just continued as they were. The world hadn't ended yet, aliens weren't dropping from the skies and scooping people from their homes, and the police still kept the peace. So for these people, life continued as if nothing had happened, though you could bet that their eyes were glued to their television or computer screens the moment they got home. Jeffrey fell into this camp, as he felt it was too much effort to freak out when he had no real information. He kept his ear to the ground, though, and if worse came to worse, he could always pile into his pal Benny's place. Benny always had been a bit of a nutter, though his need to set up a bunker looked increasingly sane when one considered that his claims of attacking extraterrestrial life had actually come true. With everyone preoccupied with the looming alien menace, it came as no surprise then that the museums and libraries were basically empty. No one wanted to learn about ancient history when there were honest-to-God aliens hovering in the skies above.
Excuse me, which way is the dinosaur exhibit?
A female voice piped up, pulling Geoffrey from his thoughts.
Well, almost no one.
Geoffrey thought to himself.
Right this way, ma'am.
Oh no, you don't have to take us there,
the lady said with an awkward smile. Geoffrey just brushed off her comment.
It's no trouble at all. The place isn't exactly busy, and it beats just standing here.
Well, if you're sure we won't be a bother.
Honestly, it's no trouble at all,
he said again, before he started leading the small family through the museum. They barely made it 2 steps before something odd caught the security guard's eye, causing him to automatically put his hand on his pistol. The weirdness in question was in the exhibit right next to the one on medieval Europe, where rows of ancient Roman armor and weapons could be seen, all surrounding a statue of a rearing horse. As he stared, he couldn't help but feel something was off, even though absolutely nothing was out of place.
Is there something wrong, sir?
The mother asked behind him, her voice filled with worry as she noticed the guard's readied stance. The security guard looked back, his expression breaking into a reassuring, if somewhat nervous, grin.
No. Just got a hinky feeling. Used to be a ranger after all. And the training never really goes away.
The woman opened her mouth, presumably to ask another question, but was interrupted by the small 5-year-old, tugging at her skirt.
Mommy, why is the side of the statue made of water? What?
She asked, somewhat confused. Geoffrey, on the other hand, immediately turned around, only to see something that he refused to believe. The statue in the center of the exhibit stood on a rather large, squarish stone base, and the side of that base that was currently facing the small group was currently rippling, as if it were the surface of a river or a pool of water.
What the devil?
Geoffrey asked, before taking a few cautious steps forward. Before he could get close enough to examine the statue, however, the rippling grew in intensity, and seemingly without any ceremony, fuss, or preamble, a figure fell out of the side of the statue. It was so sudden, so completely without warning, that everyone present jumped back in surprise. The child screamed a little, and Geoffrey unholstered and leveled his pistol without a second thought. Whatever the thing was, it was clearly alien, and he wasn't about to let anyone nearby become another Portland disappearing act.
This is your only warning. Turn around and go back to whatever cesspit of a planet that spawned you,
Geoffrey shouted as he took a beat on the thing's head. Then, the thing stood up, and panic set into Geoffrey's brain as he registered several things that were just wrong about the creature. It had the same general anatomy of a human, but everything about it was off. The arms and legs were far too long and spindly, and its fingers looked more like the legs of a spider than anything that belonged on a human. Anything else about the creature's form was hidden by the clothing it wore. It was dressed in a nice fancy black suit, though the make somehow screamed old-fashioned and alien at the same time. The jacket looked like it could be buttoned up in the front, but currently wasn't, revealing a vest that almost went to the creature's throat, but stopped short of a series of ruffles found there. The whole thing looked like it could almost pass for something that might have been made on Earth, albeit from the 17th century, if it weren't for the other things about it that just screamed alien. The buttons, for example, were some kind of gemstone cut in the shape of buttons, and sewn on to serve that purpose. The fabric had a smooth-looking texture that seemed to almost change color slightly, depending on how one looked at it, and the general cut and fit of the suit made the thing seem off, like the maker had only just recently started making clothes for someone with the general shape of a human. One of its arms was in a sling, but this did nothing to hamper the aura of menace and alien cruelty that the thing exuded, and as it straightened to its full, frightening 7-foot height, Geoffrey finally got a look at the thing's face, or rather, the mask it wore. It appeared to be wood, with a smiling, cheerful face painted on its front, in a manner consistent with a child's hand-painting. Combined with the monster's dress and physique, this only further served to intensify the thing's terrifying appearance. What happened next passed so quickly that a less prepared individual would have completely missed it, especially with a young mother and her child screaming and running away somewhere behind the former Army Ranger. Fortunately for Geoffrey, he kept his wits about him and his focus on the monster, and was thus able to follow it when it started to move. Geoffrey unloaded his weapon on the monster the second the thing so much as twitched, but as fast as Geoffrey's reaction was, the thing was much, much faster. It moved like freaking lightning, and though Jeffrey couldn't keep his eyes on the thing at this distance, he still had trouble guessing at just how fast it could move at first. Because of this, he failed to properly anticipate where it was going to end up as it dodged left, which allowed the monster to barely avoid the first volley as it disappeared behind the wall. Still, Jeffrey's training wasn't wasted, and though he might not have hit anything vital, he was still pretty sure he'd winged the demon, though he honestly couldn't be certain. What he was certain of was the fact that he was woefully underarmed to be dealing with something as fast as the creepypasta reject that had materialized inside his museum. The security guard quickly keyed his walkie, intent on getting backup, but stopped when the sound of someone yelling up ahead caught his attention. Whomever it was clearly wasn't happy, but instead of some unknown alien tongue, the voice spoke freaking English. It even had an accent that he recognized. The voice sounded like it came from Maine, of all places. Despite the accent, though, the voice was clearly not human. It sounded rough and gravelly, with a slight hint of something that Jeffrey couldn't quite place, possibly metallic, though at the same time there was a hint of another, higher-pitched voice mimicking the deeper one at the same time. Whatever it was, though, it was clearly trying to communicate, despite, or maybe because of, the fact that Jeffrey just tried to blow its head off.
Freaking trigger-happy piece of crap, rent a cop! Don't shoot! I'm on your side! Friendly alien monster, I swear!
At this point, Jeffrey felt confused, somewhat out of his depth, relieved, and suspicious all rolled into one.
I'm sorry, but what?
If you're having trouble believing me, please call the cops, get the army over here, drag me off to your secret government labs. I'll seriously just sit here while you do all that. Just don't shoot at me anymore. Seriously, I got enough of that from the Kryn.
Jeffrey, what happened? I heard gunshots and I got a hysterical woman here.
Jeffrey heard from his radio.
Call the police, Bill. We've got a situation.
Jeffrey said, before slowly creeping towards where he saw the alien disappear.
Some kind of alien showed up here, but it says it's friendly.
Might want to get an ambulance over here while you're at it.
The voice chipped in.
You winged me with your hand cannon. And now I'm having trouble not bleeding over Rasa Fool's nice new clothes.
Jeffrey turned the corner, his pistol aimed downward, as the alien finally came into view. It was every bit as terrifying as he initially saw, though at the moment it was curled up, attempting to make itself as small-looking as possible. Its left arm was no longer in its sling, as it was currently busy trying to stem the red blood oozing from the creature's upper arm.
Please, really, I don't want to die. I didn't come here to fight or kill. I came here to warn. Don't shoot me again, please.
After a few seconds of deliberation, Jeffrey finally holstered his gun, before kneeling down and reaching out for the creature's sleeve. With a quick pull, the guard ripped off the sleeve and quickly began tying a tourniquet over the creature's wound. The guard nearly jumped out of his skin then, having sworn that he could hear a distant scream of horror and rage in the distance. As Jeffrey quickly surveyed the area, unable to find the source of the scream, the creature piped up again, its voice sounding tired and strained.
Hey, what's your name?
Jeffrey looked back down at the creature, its masked face cocked at an inquisitive angle, though Jeffrey couldn't help but detect a note of sadness in the way the creature carried itself.
I'm Jeffrey Stevens. Sorry for shooting you.
It's okay, believe me. If I were in your spot, I would have done the same.
The creature said. Before either of them could say anything else, the radio suddenly came back on.
Jeffrey, you still there?
Bill asked, clearly afraid that he might not receive an answer.
I'm here, Bill. What's the ETA on those police?
Jeffrey asked.
They're already here, and they want to know the situation. Your gunfire tripped the silent alarm, and there were already a few cars in the vicinity.
Bill said, clearly relieved. Jeffrey looked down at the alien, a question in his eye, only to receive a wave.
Yeah, bring him in. Might as well get this over with. We really don't have time to waste.
Tell them to come on down. They'll want to talk with our visitor themselves,
Jeffrey said through the radio, before looking down at the monster inquisitively.
Hey, what's your name?
The alien almost seemed shocked at the question. He quickly recovered, though, and let out an awkward cough.
I'm sorry. My name is Alex.
Alex. That's not an alien name, Sonny,
Jeffrey said, both surprised and somewhat suspicious. Alex looked up at Jeffrey, and through the mask covering his face, Jeffrey could still sense a sort of self-mocking look in the creature's cold, black eyes.
That's because it isn't. I'd like to tell you more, but I really need to see someone in charge. A general, or even the president. This is going to be hard to believe.
I hate to burst your bubble, Alex, but I kind of think that'll be hard to do.
Alex seemed confused at that, but before he could elaborate, the police finally arrived. They were cautious of the alien at first, but once he started talking, it immediately became clear that was far above their pay grade.
High Priest, we have a bit of a situation.
Yovakior looked towards Colonel Connors and murmured an apology before he activated the intercom with but a thought.
What is it, Lilith?
A Kryn's signature just appeared in one of the humans' places of knowledge. It's a museum of some kind, but that's not important. What is important is that the humans have apparently noticed as well, as there are several law enforcement vehicles en route to that location.
The lieutenant reported, her voice sounding almost out of breath.
Understand, Lieutenant. Have a strike team ready to move at a moment's notice. If this turns bloody, I want to be able to contain this in an instant.
Yovakior then turned to Colonel Connors, before bowing slightly to the confused-looking human.
I'm sorry, but there seems to be a bit of a problem. A Kryn's signal has appeared on your planet, and we must hurry to contain it.
It took a few seconds for Yavar to translate the High Priest's message, but once he was finished, the colonel was already on his feet, his expression grave.
The colonel says that, is there something he and his men can do to help?
Yovakior opened his mouth to respond, but stopped when the lieutenant chimed in again.
Sir? The problem might be larger than we first thought.
Why is that, Lieutenant?
Yovakior asked, not liking the trouble in his lieutenant's voice.
We just decoded the signal. I'm not sure how it happened, or how he got here.
Get to the point, Lieutenant.
Yovakior cut her off, not at all liking how Lilith was chasing the Corvos by the tail.
The information matches exactly to that of the recovered Kryn experiment,
Lilith said, clearly not believing what was coming out of her own mouth.
Excuse me, but what did you just say?
Sir, somehow, some way, Alexander Cunningham managed to return home all on his own.
Those words seemed to echo through the High Priest's chamber. Questions chased themselves around in the Cusan leader's head, until finally they were all brought to a stop as Colonel Connors cleared his throat again.
Sir, the colonel still wishes to be of help,
Yavar stated dutifully. Yovakior studied the colonel intently before he leaned forward, one of his hands on his chin.
Yes, sorry for the delay, Colonel, but I do think there is something you can help us with.